communities as a whole? How do we work with societies to upskill them about, really how to interact with the digital medium, how to make sure that they are safe and secure online, and eventually, start to imagine possibilities. What could a career in cybersecurity look like as well? So that's really the backdrop. Obviously, there is a massive shortage of cybersecurity talent, and concerted steps need to be taken. 64% of all cyber leaders in one of the surveys that we did said that this is one of the biggest barriers to strengthening cyber resilience, the shortage of talent and retention of talent. So with that, I want to introduce our panelists. So we are very privileged to have Prey Suvansukuroj, Communications and Digital Technology Program Manager for Digital Frontiers, Digital Asia Accelerator. I'm sorry, much as I tried, I think I would have got it wrong.
No, you did
then
not.
We have Adnan Rehman, Portfolio Lead, Senior Associate and Project Manager at Inspira Advisory and Consulting Limited, Bangladesh. Daniel Santos, Lead for International Outreach, National Initiative for Cybersecurity Education, NICE. And last but not the least, Stan Byers, Cybersecurity Team Lead, USAID. So Prai, if I was to turn to you, in your experience, what innovative approaches can help bolster citizen and business understanding of online safety and security practices and promote good cyber hygiene?
Hello. Hello. And thank you. Hello. Can you guys hear me? Perfect. So thank you for the question, and thank you everyone for joining us today. So I think the key to designing any approach to the program is to really understand how does our target audience make sense of the issue that we're trying to resolve, and really trying to understand also the factors that influence the understanding of those issues, because these insights would first let us understand or help us determine the reach and the resonance with the target audience that we want to talk to. And also it would also help us determine with the larger strategy that we have to follow, whether there's any synergies or dissonances that we could try to address. And so once we have those insights, then we could then think about how we can collaborate or co-create programs with the people that we're working with, because essentially the beneficiaries are actually not the people we're working for, but the people we're working with. And so just to give you a brief example of what we did in Mongolia, so we did a cybersecurity awareness racing campaign in Mongolia. So we did a formative research to really understand what are the issues and what are the ways people understand or not particularly understand about cybersecurity issues. And so from that, we decided that, so the target audience is actually the entire population of Mongolia, and we decided that in order to reach that population, we rely on the pop culture to drive our cybersecurity awareness raising campaign. And so we collaborated with two pop artists to write a song that embed the cybersecurity awareness key message in the song. So when you listen to it, you don't really know. But then, no, listen to me. And then, but then once we released the song, and then we released a series of interviews and behind the scenes of the music video shooting, and that's when the two artists talk about, okay, this is the inspiration behind the song, and then they talk about, okay, this particular verse is talking about cybersecurity and talk about data privacy. And so having those two influential pop artists talk about how important cybersecurity is to them, it's a very it's really effective in terms of reach and resonance that I talked about earlier. Just to briefly answer the second part of your question, which is about how to encourage people to promote the good cyber hygiene practices. So we learned that by creating understanding or creating awareness about cybersecurity, it's not particularly enough to make people want to advocate for like cybersecurity practices. So, and then we learned also that by making sure that people realize first the importance and truly understand the urgency of cybersecurity, it's actually people tend to build this sense of responsibility and take ownership in promoting or advocating for cybersecurity. Yeah, so I'm gonna stop there. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your introduction. That was particularly powerful in terms of how you use influencers to raise awareness. But what I want to move over to now is it's a well-known fact that we embed cyber hygiene in societies, but what's the baseline of it? What are we measuring there? So my question to you is, what does the culture of cybersecurity across society look like?
All right, so I think anyone can Google the definition of a cybersecurity culture, but I would like to more break it down in a conceptual way. So I've actually done a lot of behavioral change campaigns. So from that perspective, we sort of break it down into A, B, C. So A stands for awareness. Awareness is when you know any piece of information. It can be any piece of knowledge. B is behavior, when you are applying that piece of knowledge, when you are just using what you know. And C is when it becomes culture, when everyone around you is following what they know. Everyone around you is practicing that bit of knowledge. Just to give one bit of example, even after recent like MFA hackings and whatnot, we know that multi-factor authentication still stops around 30 to 50% of all hacking attempts. So I would say that's a useful piece of information. Step 2 is when people start applying it. And step 3 is when everyone on the internet starts applying it. So if you just think about that, if every internet user was applying multi-factor authentication, we would effectively be stopping 30 to 50% of all hacking attempts. And essentially that is what the idea of a cybersecurity culture is. We talk a lot about the absolute essential cybersecurity measures. We know about strong passwords, multi-factor authentication, always checking for phishing links, and always updating software. Imagine if everyone started doing that in society, everyone who was online started doing that, it would tremendously reduce the pressure on the cybersecurity professionals. We've actually repeated that time and time again during the COVID pandemic. If people like always wear masks, if people are respectful of spacing, then it reduces the burden on healthcare professionals. And that is the same when it comes to cybersecurity as well. So if we can embed a culture of cybersecurity across society, what it means that the job becomes a lot easier for cybersecurity professionals. So I did sort of mention it in a very simplified way, ABC, but how we get from A to C can often be very, very difficult. And whatever campaigns we use have to be highly contextualized. So Prey was mentioning something about resonance. So I sort of come from a marketing background, and this is something that we constantly do when we work with brands. Like the messaging that you use has to resonate with your target audience. So to get someone from awareness to behavior, you have to find the line of messaging that resonates with them. So at the end of the day, I think Osama Manzar mentioned it in his session yesterday that you need hyper-localization of any sort of awareness campaigns. And like, we often say that if anyone sends a scam message, like a mass scam message, we treat it as sort of a lame phishing attempt, like no one's going to fall for that. But the truth is, the similar can be said of any mass cybersecurity awareness campaign as well. If you're not tailoring it to your audience, it's just as likely to fail. So, yeah.
Taking a simple concept and highlighting the complexity behind that, and we'll definitely have an opportunity to go more into understanding that complexity when we go into the breakouts. But now I want to switch gears. I mean, assuming we've done things right, people are aware that we need to have best-in-class cybersecurity practices, and they become so inspired that they want to pursue a career in cybersecurity. So Stan, I turn to you to ask, what are the key skills that would make a candidate more attractive to the cybersecurity industry?
Thank you. Wow, loud. And there's kind of. Is it too loud? Okay. There are three things that kind of I thought about on this, and that represent all of that. It's not really a simple thing. So, but the three that I came up with were, one, just a curiosity, because this is not a well-defined field, because it is changing incredibly rapidly, and that you have to want to learn new things without it being something that is well known. You have to be wanting to think about new ways of approaching this, as it evolves. How do these new issues that come into the sector apply? What no longer applies, and having that continual kind of innovative approach and having the curiosity to do that. Related to that is then the second characteristic of kind of proactive problem solving. No one's going to tell you how to do your cybersecurity job, because there's so few people that there aren't clear guidelines, there aren't best practices, especially in new markets, where places where digital technologies and digital transformation is happening, relatively recently or is ongoing right now. It's both new and changing incredibly fast, and new technologies are now being even if you knew what it was a few years ago, it's now something new, and it's going to continue to change at an accelerating rate. So you have to be thinking proactively of what are the new problems, what are the things we have to figure out now, and not waiting for someone to tell you this is what you have to do now. And then once you figure out what the new thing, proactively with your own agency, saying I'm going to go figure that out. And I'm not going to wait that somewhere else this is going to get solved, because that's not the reality. The people, it's a small community right now. So the conversations we're having right now, this is where these things are getting figured out. This isn't like, okay, someone else is going to be, we're just talking about it. This community of people here at this conference are a lot of the people that are going to figure out the future of this field. So we have to take that to heart when we think about going into this field. And then finally, because of all this, you also need a high level of integrity and responsibility, because this cuts across so many different things, because it's undefined, because there aren't clear guidelines or guardrails on all this. Once you do have some level of proficiency with it, it actually opens up a lot of opportunities for you in both positive ways and potentially negative ways. And there are incentives in many cases to go in a move in a less responsible direction for self-gain, or in some cases where people are being recruited into those environments because the malicious actors that are out there also need these skills, and they're increasingly actively looking to recruit people. So how do you build that integrity in? Part of it is, and this is something we have to think about as people that are trying to build this sector, creating the right incentive structures so that integrity gets rewarded. And one of the comments that was made to me actually at lunch today by someone from Kenya was that the way skills right now get announced, the way you introduce yourself as a skilled actor in this space is you hack into something. And then that often gets rewarded. Okay, there is some place for that, because there are going to be a lot of particularly young people that are learning this stuff and are going to be showing their skills. So let's find ways to guide them in a more ethical direction and to give them a promising career doing ethical hacking. But the same thing means for less maybe obvious parts of cybersecurity, that 80% that's not technical. When people are in government that are really pushing this and doing the right thing and have that ethical foundation, we need to have incentives built into that are going to keep them moving in their career and give them the opportunities to continue to build. Because if they're curious, if they are proactive problem solvers and they have integrity and they're not getting rewarded, they're going to move on and they're going to do something else. So I'll stop there. Thank you.
Very much for your reflections. And really, I think when we
My question to you is, how do organizations foster a sense of purpose to inspire cybersecurity professionals?
Yeah, I think. It's weird hearing your voice that loud. I think when it comes to inspiring, that cybersecurity careers and getting people into cybersecurity careers. It was actually mentioned in this room earlier today on a different panel about reaching kids younger. They were talking about education and how young do we start teaching education. And I think the same thing could be said not only in skills, but the purpose of that is to get them aware of cybersecurity careers. Organizations helping to get youth aware that these careers exist. How many of you in the room run or participate in national awareness campaigns? Quite a few, right? And I think my fellow panelist here was talking about pop culture and singers and things like that. I think we can do the same for careers. We can make it look fun. We can make kids interested, and I wouldn't stop there at kids either, because there's a huge talent pool we could reach by bringing in people from other past careers. I couldn't agree more with the top 3 skills you mentioned. None of them were technical, if you were listening. And I think a lot of the current workforce that might be interested in making a career change, who have those 3 skills, would be excellent candidates for cybersecurity careers. So I think the more we can promote awareness of them and utilize things like national awareness campaigns to include career awareness, not just this is how you use MFA, this is how you make sure you're safe online, but also take the next step and talk to them about careers and make them aware that there's a broad variety of careers that you can have. It doesn't just look this one way. It looks like many different things. And then on top of that, there are many different ways to get to that career. There's not one single path you have to follow. You don't have to have a computer science or engineering degree. You can get into the field in a variety of different ways. And then the last thing I'd say is having designated champions who can be those role models and figures. Again, another panel here at this conference, someone was talking about, when I was younger, I wanted to be X occupation because that's what everyone who looked like me was in that occupation. I didn't know I could be a cybersecurity person because that's just not where I saw myself. So the more we can get people out in front of others, talking about what they do in cybersecurity and showing people that it's a very diverse field. It can be. I know we talk a lot about the gender disparity and things like that, but I think we can find those golden nuggets of people who are doing great things and amplify them. And I think that'll really help, generate more interest and get people into the careers.
Thank you so much for that, Daniel. And as I was speaking with Stan, I should definitely sort of showcase that I'm also one of those candidates who started off with a career on merchant ships for first 10 years, and then subsequently through various routes transitioned into cybersecurity quite by accident. But Stan was also saying that a lot of the answers to the issues lie in this room. And therefore, I think it's really important for us at this stage to tap into your collective intelligence to reflect upon some of the themes that have been touched upon. So we'd like to break you up into...
Akshay, before we actually break out, I would just like to add on to what Daniel was saying, if you would allow, of course. Sure. So since the theme of this panel is to think outside the box, so I was having a few thoughts. So just awareness raising might not be enough as well. You have to sort of compare that with what Prey was mentioning with pop culture, because the power of pop culture is really immense. So back in 1986, when the first Top Gun movie came out, the following year, the US military enlistments rose by 500%. So, and there was an earlier survey done in the US in 2020 where they surveyed over 1,000 employed people, and they found out that 58% of them had been in some way impressioned by pop culture to choose their way of the career. So I just like to mention that the power of pop culture is out there, and I'm not suggesting we make like a Top Gun style movie as much as I love Tom Cruise, but the one other thing I would like to point out is that there's a lot of asymmetry here actually. So what Stan was mentioning is that a lot of kids get into the idea of ethical hacking. So I'm fairly young. I grew up playing a lot of video games. I watched a lot of movies where hacking was portrayed as something that was very cool. So naturally, people think that they could be ethical hackers, whereas there is like a perfectly formal way of doing that. It's vulnerability assessment and penetration testing, but people don't know about those jobs. So it would be really cool if you could portray the way that actual cybersecurity consultants work, cybersecurity testers work, and the fact that it's such a diverse field. What Daniel was mentioning about bringing in more diversity, particularly women, and I think in this room earlier, Randy Pestania from the Florida International University, he was saying that they were having trouble with influential women in cybersecurity. They wanted to bring in role models, but they were having a hard time finding very successful women in cybersecurity to be faculties there. But with pop culture and with fiction, you could absolutely fix that. Like, just think about what Marvel is doing for diversity. A lot of children from various backgrounds are feeling empowered. So I just wanted to throw that thought out there. Like, it's not just cybersecurity professionals running awareness campaigns. There's a huge role that the creative media also has to play here.
I'm going to add one quick thing to add on to that. I agree with everything you're saying. I think I love these innovative approaches to generating the excitement and the empowerment, among groups and individuals that may not be considering it or be considered for it. And then I think the second step we have to take as maybe more institutional actors, whether it be a business or a government structure or a nonprofit, whatever it is, you have to recognize to keep that talent, to retain it. We have to create an environment that if we create that excitement, and then they go into it, and the reality is that they're not empowered, in the organization, that they're not being included in the strategic development of what's happening, even though what they're doing cuts across it all, then they're going to get disillusioned, and they're going to, it's going to be hard to retain people. So we have to think on the other end of, once we can find the people, we have to create careers for them that follow up on that promise. That these are exciting careers, that you are going to have opportunities, you are going to be an integral part of your institution, because what you do is really important to it, and just creating opportunities for others. And so we have to then rethink from our perspective of how do we create that environment that is going to be really rewarding for people that are coming into it.
Thank you very much for that. I think from Top Gun to fighter pilots, maybe let's see from awareness to cybersecurity professionals, how do we solve some of these issues within our 4 breakouts? So the first breakout is going to be around the culture of cybersecurity with Adnan. Those of you interested in exploring that element, feel free to join him there. It's at the far end of the room. The second one is around innovative and creative ways that organizations have experimented to inspire, encourage, and attract talent, and that's going to be with Prey.